Good morning, guys. Welcome to a presentation all around starting a law firm, which is something that I am really passionate about, but am finding somewhat ironic to be talking to you about this week. I'm in Brisbane. We have gone back into lockdown. I'm potentially talking to people in Sydney who are well entrenched in lockdown, and it's a really hard time. And I think one of the things that I will say about running any business, this is not unique to running a law firm, is if you haven't done it before and you are currently in a senior role in an organization, you are about to add a whole lot of extra things to think about to your life. So weeks like this, I find really tough. It's certainly one thing to look after yourself. It's a whole other thing to lead a team through these sorts of ups and downs that life keeps throwing at us at the moment. But my learning, I guess, rightly or wrongly, is this is just how it's going to be, and we have to find ways to work with it. So anyway, I'd love to know where you're from, just location-wise, in the chat box if you're open to it. And I guess what's brought you here? Like, do you have a burning idea? Have you started a firm? Are you looking for some tips? If you can give me just a little bit of context, it will help me to tailor the conversation that we're going to have this morning. And as we go, please do feel free to comment and ask questions just using the chat box. It really helps me to get a sense of whether obviously what I'm saying is useful to you, but also to help you by perhaps pushing things out a little bit more or giving you a bit more information about particular topics. Great. Thanks, Roxy. A few weeks. Exciting. And if you can tell me what sort of law you might be practicing when you start that firm in a few weeks. I, of course, practice in family law, but there are all sorts of different wonderful areas. Migration, yeah, right. Such a tricky little space that's been, hasn't it, for the last 12 months? But no doubt there'll be such a push of that area into the future. Mildura, how beautiful, Michelle. What a gorgeous part of the world to live in. Great. Okay, great. So own firm sounds like very similar areas to me. So please do ask questions as we go. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Roxy, is Bozo Rachel? I'm trying to put that together. I'm wondering if that's who that is. I feel like that's who that is. Anyway, yeah, perfect. Okay, I don't know Rachel as Bozo, but that's cute. And there's obviously a whole story that sits behind that. She's got some really beautiful concepts for her business. And she did actually do this course, that the same course that the webinar today is largely based on earlier this year. So I had a great time working with Rachel as she was thinking up some of the different ways that she's going to be building a migration law practice. Hi, Jordan. So, and Rebecca's all the way in Canada. How beautiful. Family law, wills and estates, South Australia. Okay, so you've got a bit of a plan by the sounds of it in what you're going to be doing. And welcome, Rebecca, all the way from Canada. How exciting is that? Immigration law as well. Yeah, there's lots of parallels between practices in Canada, practice in Australia. Obviously, the legal framework is quite similar. But I have a lot of friends that run legal firms in Canada, particularly in the family law space. That's the space that I hang out with. And there's just lots of parallels in the smaller new law boutique market, which is the space that I know best and the one that I'll be talking to you about mostly today. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Giovanna. Okay, great. So we've got like a beautiful mix of practice areas and locations, particularly in this conversation. I'm just going to get some slides up and we're going to get stuck into this morning. What I'm going to share with you today are 4 key tips on launching your law firm. So yeah, literally that, 4 steps, 4 tips, 4 things. One of those steps has 8 parts to it. So it's probably a few more than 4 steps really, but nonetheless, lots of steps. Lots of hopefully helpful tips that can kick-start your law firm. So let's get stuck into this. Who am I? I am obviously Clarissa. I do run a law firm here in sunny Brisbane, Australia. It is very sunny this morning. I'm in my home office. The sun streams in, which is actually beautiful and problematic. So at various times, like I could look like this, where I'm super bright, and then I can sort of become super dark. So I apologize. It's just the morning light. But Brisbane is one beautiful place to live when you're not in lockdown. I guess even when you're in lockdown, it's not that bad. But certainly when you're not in this space, I much prefer it, I have to say. I do run a firm. It is a specialist family law practice called Brisbane Family Law Centre, and it does what it says. on the tin. And I've had that firm for the last 13 years. And gee, I've had some ups and downs. And I'm sure anyone in business would say to you that they've had ups and downs. I really have. But I've learned so much in that adventure. And these days, I really love our practice. I'm really proud of the business that we've built. We have a team of about 13 in my practice. There are 5 family lawyers and then a team of web designers, graphic designers, administrative assistants. I do run a very different structured business to, I think, what many would expect out of a law firm. And I'll talk you through some of why today, why I think business in law needs to think a bit more broadly and some of the successes that have come from that for us. I also, though, have a side hustle that some of you will know about called Happy Lawyer, Happy Life. That business came about through my own experience in law of feeling pretty lost, to be honest, and with the benefit of hindsight, being very burnt out. That was when I had my first daughter. There she is to the left of the screen, London. She's 9 now, so this is a few years ago. And certainly the combination of becoming a mum and running a legal firm, I found really hard. And I didn't cope particularly well, and I don't think I did it particularly well, certainly for that first 12 months. And I found myself in a pretty tricky headspace where I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to go to my own business. And I know some of you are talking about leaving businesses that you're not that passionate about to start your own business with lots of passion. And it's really not great when you start your own business and you don't even want to go there. So that was the headspace I was in. I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And that started for me a process of research more than anything else, going, hang on a second, if I'm not feeling great, I need to do something about that. I did speak with some professionals, some psychologists, and get some help in that sense. But a couple of things collided for me all at that same time, which I will forever be grateful for. One particularly was that I, by accident, enrolled in a business course. And it was a course that ran for 40 weeks, which is ironic, the same length as a pregnancy. Luckily, I'd done the pregnancy and I had the baby by this stage, but I started this business course, and it's a course run by a company who are now called Dent. And it has nothing to do with law and everything to do with entrepreneurial business. And it was my first exposure to 50 business owners here in Brisbane and about 1,000 nationwide, and I don't know how many thousand internationally, that just thought differently to the world that I had lived in to that date. And it was such a wonderful experience for me to be submerged in a business community that were all about supporting each other, testing boundaries, trying things differently, building products, changing how we ran IP, not doing time-based billing. All of the things that I'd come to know in law were suddenly turned on their head. And through that course, I learned about content marketing, and I started a blog, a website called The Happy Family Lawyer. So this was back in 2013, when I guess still even having a website for a law firm was a thing that many law firms did, but they didn't do much with those websites. And so I started writing on a weekly basis on this little personal blog site, basically called The Happy Family Lawyer. In that slide, it looks much fancier than it did at that time. It was a blog that I bought on WordPress for $100 one Saturday night when I was like, what am I going to do with myself? And I just started writing. And luckily, no one was reading that, save for probably my mother. And 6 months down the track, one of my colleagues in my firm came in and she said, I found this thing on the internet. Was that you? I said, maybe. What did you find? What's going on? And I realized that my sort of weekly musings, which were largely about issues that my customers and clients were having or things that I was experiencing, just this sort of narrative, almost like a personal diary, was actually getting some traction. I linked it to a Facebook page, and in part, the rest is history. And I have one of the strongest online profiles here in Australia, all as a result of this silly little website. And I say silly with a little bit of sarcasm because it's become one of the most valuable business tools for me. That process of writing online converted and created, I guess, a structure for me to write a book. And it was a book for my clients called Splitsville: How to Separate, Stay Out of Court and Stay Friends. That led to me writing a second book, which is a book for all of us. I, in my own way, had to overcome, how do I find a place to be a lawyer in an industry that at times I just don't feel like I fit into? And how is it that we can be happy and have careers that are really valuable to all of us? And what do we do? So I headed off and did a whole lot of research in that space. And that led to my second book, Happy Lawyer, Happy Life, which some of you will know that off the back of that, around the same time, really, I launched a podcast by the same name. And so for the last 5 years, I've interviewed over 220 lawyers around the world about what it is that makes them happy, how it is that they do what they do. And that's been such a fascinating little experience for me, just drilling into the different ways that we all do things and how we all got to wherever we are, all of those things. So that's a bit of a narrative, I guess, of how it is that I find myself here today talking to you about starting a law firm, because Happy Lawyer, Happy Life has turned into a business. I work now with lawyers all around Australia and across the world, coaching them through my membership, the club, and through courses and the like, because I have a belief that we all have such wonderful knowledge, and we work in an industry that in the past has been reticent to share that knowledge. You certainly would share it within an organisation, but you wouldn't necessarily share it outside of an organisation, because there's a sense of, oh, if I tell them our secrets, they'll be more successful than us. And I really have a different mindset to that, which is the more we can collaborate and share knowledge, the better we can all be. That concept of the rising tide raises all boats. I have learned so much from the people that I've had the chance to work with in the last few years, and I hope that they've learned from me. And I've certainly seen in the small firm space that the more we support each other, the more people can just jump ahead in leaps and bounds, because everyone has everyone has had to overcome certain challenges, and they're very common challenges. And it's so lovely to be able to go into a community and say, look, this is my concern. I know I need to hire a person, but I don't know who I need to hire. I don't know what process I need to go through to do it, or I don't know who I need to start with, or whatever it might be. And to have a whole support network of people that say, well, look, I didn't really know either, but this is what I did and this is what worked for me. Or someone that might say, this is what I did and it really didn't work for me, and what I've learned since is this. We can all learn from that combined knowledge. And I think that is one of the things that I really have enjoyed this past few years, as more and more people are going out and starting law firms, which is great. Thanks, Sheetal. That's very kind of you to say. All right, let's get stuck into this. I love this saying, the gap between what's expected and what you deliver is where the magic happens in business and in life. Isn't that just such a beautiful saying? Sums it up for me. I love business. I love the creativity of business. I love the opportunity to influence and change. I love the idea of being the master of your own destiny. These are all of the advantages that come with running your own organisation. And like any opportunity, on the other side of that coin will be challenge. You are the master of your own destiny, therefore you are responsible for all that goes on. You will at times feel very lonely. It can be hard to know, am I making the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? So you're going to have to back yourself. You really are going to have to back yourself if you're going to step out and run your own firm. And something I've come to know about lawyers is we are perfectionists, which is wonderful. It's an incredible strength for all of us. It means that we research and we think and we overdo everything. Our sort of okay is anyone else's exceptional. And so here is my first tip. It's not even one of my 4 framework steps. It's just the highlight of anything that I say to anyone. You have to believe in yourself. And in business, sometimes it's just about making a decision and committing to that decision and not even worrying whether it's the right decision. Just making a decision is the secret, and then going forward. And you'll later perhaps discover that, okay, that wasn't the right decision, but you won't know that for a few months. And out of every bad business decision I've ever made has come incredible success. Let me share one with you before we keep going. When I started my firm, I had this dream of having a legal business and next to it a cafe and gift store, because they work together, don't they? Every legal business needs a cafe and gift store. Really, if you know anything about me, what you would understand is that I quite enjoy being a lawyer. That's great. But I have this whole creative part of my life, and it just made complete sense to me that my love of coffee and my love of nice things should feature right next to my law firm. So my husband and I invested in a lease for a law firm, and it conveniently had a shop next to it. And about 12 months after moving our law firm into that space, we opened a cafe, because that's what you do when you're a lawyer and you've never run a cafe before, and you have incredible knowledge about running cafes, or in my case, none. So on any test of business success, the cafe was a dismal financial failure. If you want to lose some money, get Clarissa to open and run a cafe for you. So yeah, certainly financial perspective, cafe disaster. I must have run it for about 3 or 4 years. Look, It was fun, but it was exhausting. I learned so much about the differences between a food business and a services business, all of these things. However, within that cafe, I employed a bunch of amazing people. One of which is Sarah Follett, and Sarah still works with me today. So 10 years down the track, Sarah is by trade an interior designer. She works within my firm now and is managing all of our online, digital, visual things, like extraordinary talent and extraordinary skill set. And but for my cafe, I would never have fallen upon Sarah and would never have been able to have her in my business. And she's one of the most valuable team members that I have. I met Amelia. Amelia these days produces my podcast, but Amelia managed the cafe for about 12 months. She then transitioned across when we closed it and managed my law firm, and now manages my podcast because she's gone and created her own little business. I would never have met Amelia but for the cafe. Freya, who's is my most senior lawyer in my office, started working in the cafe because she was friends with Sarah. And so Freya's working in the cafe. Next thing you know, she's a sort of administrative assistant, I guess, in my office. And then next thing you know, she's a solicitor in my office. And 10 years down the track, she's one of the most talented solicitors I have. Again, all because of the deep failure that was my cafe business. I tell you this story because I think it's so important to think broadly in business. You know, these moments in time where you're going to make mistakes, lose money, whatever it might be, if you keep pushing forward and backing yourself, it is extraordinary, the amazing things that I see come from challenge. And as Jay says here, it's the magic, the gap between what you expect and what you deliver in that little space where all of the cool things happen. Lawland right now, here in Australia, just last week or perhaps the week before, I don't know, it's all Groundhog Day for me at the moment. There was this great survey that came out nationally. Sheetal, you'll probably know what the survey is called. I unhelpfully don't, but it was all of the law societies pulling their data last year to look at what's the state of the profession. And of course, the headlines that have come off the back of that are the very helpful ones. Thank you. See, she does know. You're all over it. Of course, there are more women in law than ever before. Great. That's wonderful. Very interested in that statistic. I don't want to ignore it. But the piece that actually really intrigued me was 4 out of 5 law firms here in Australia are sole practitioner firms. Small law is the new big, and this is absolutely the piece that intrigues me. I absolutely play in the small law firm market, the micro firm, the entrepreneurial business firm, the new law firm. I don't care what label you want to put to it, but people who've said, I want some freedom. I want to be the master of my own destiny. I don't need to have a particular structure. I often start working from home and then I build a framework around that. This piece really interests me. And in the last 12 months, we've seen more people than ever before, in essence, putting out their own shingle. In part, that was forced by COVID last year, as in the initial stages, a lot of people lost their jobs. But in part, I think what COVID has really done is got us all thinking, okay, how do I want to spend my time? How do I, where do I want to be? How do I want to work? What if I had control over that? All of those sorts of things. And so we're seeing incredible change in terms of the structure of Lawlands, as I like to call it. I think we've seen wonderful change as well in terms of the expectations of our customers. No longer do you need an ivory tower full of lots of marble, and I'm not against ivory towers full of lots of marble. There's lots of beautiful offers out there, but you don't need it. People don't expect it of you. The service aspect of what we are all doing is the thing that means the most and is making the most difference and enables small practices to really stand out in somewhat competitive marketplaces. So really thinking about how we do what we do and the consumers and customers that we're serving and how we can stand out in that pack. And small law can do that so well because we don't have to go through boards or partnership meetings to get things approved. We can just all sit here at our desks and go, oh, I might try that today and I'll do it right now. And I'll test it by 4 o'clock this afternoon. And I'll have some immediate feedback about whether that idea I have actually works or actually doesn't. The pace that we can do things at is our absolute competitive advantage. And I saw this last year in that first week as every firm around the world had to suddenly change how their workforces were operating and the pain that it caused in big organizations. And if you're an organization like mine, the meeting went something like, guys, we just need this business to work. Take whatever you need from this office, get yourself home, do whatever you need, tell me what you need. just make it work. And now we've had, I think we're into lockdown 6, I don't know, Groundhog Day, but we just have this sort of organic process in my business where people just go, oh, okay, it's a lockdown. I just pick up, literally, Kiara went in and picked up a chair on Sunday. I'm going to need that this week. Took a chair home. It just happens organically. People can work from anywhere. And I love this strength that comes from the small firm market. And I suspect many of you are going into that market. You have such competitive advantage. So never feel like, I think sometimes there's a sense of big is better, small is better. I don't know. I think everything has its place, but there absolutely is some pace and excitement in the small firm market these days. So before I keep going, any questions, any comments? Otherwise, we're going to get stuck into 4 steps to launch your law firm. All right, let's do this. Number 1, the why. As Simon Sinek would say, he's a thought leader that I have an awful lot of time for. In any business that is successful, there is absolute clarity, not only within the leadership, but within the whole organisation, about why they are there and why they do what they do. And I encourage you to spend some time really pondering this question of why do I want to start a law firm? Why does that matter to me? And it doesn't need to have a one-word answer. It might be 6 pages of reasons why this is important to you. But it's this concept of starting with the end in mind. Why do I want to start a law firm needs to be up on the wall, because every single day that will be challenged for you. There will be some issue that arises, something that happens, someone that comes along and tells you you shouldn't. And you're going to have to pause and back yourself and say, no, I believe in this. This is why I'm doing this. And if you have it framed on the wall in front of you, it will make it so much easier to remind you of the good reasons for doing this. For me, it is that creativity piece, the master of your own destiny piece. On the days when I start questioning whether I still want to run a law firm, I usually ponder the thought process of what would it look like to work for someone else these days. And I actually don't think I could do it. I would be the worst employee that ever existed. Not because I wouldn't do my work, just because I'm just, I guess, so used to just doing it in my way and not necessarily having other people's rules or expectations or all of those things around me. And that's a really important thing for me to come back to all the time and remind myself that this is one of the significant advantages of what I have chosen to do. But my suggestion to you all is that you really do take some time to pause and ask the question, why do I want to do this? Write it down somewhere, frame it, because you're going to need to come back to it over and over again. Law, when I was doing research around why is it that we're a profession of so many unhappy people, and in a really serious way, why is it that we have such high rates of psychological ill health? And some of the research I looked at informed me that we have more pessimists in law than in any other profession, or in, I guess, a general cohort of people. So there are more of us that see the world from a place of challenge than see the world from a place of opportunity. And one of the pieces of research that I looked at had studied law students particularly, and discovered that pessimistic law students outperformed optimistic law students at law school. And it makes sense, doesn't it? The idea that if I am naturally leaning towards the idea that I can find all of the problems, then I am potentially, that is a skill that a lawyer needs, is to find all of the challenges, prevent their client from having those problems, and ideally do a great job as a lawyer as a result. But the impact of that in terms of your broader life as a lawyer is problematic. And so if that's the mindset that you operate from, it's going to make it really hard to run and move a business forward, because you will forever be in the headspace of this is what's about to happen in the negative, and never coming to the positive headspace of, but what if? And what if it worked? And what if it's successful? And it also means that by and large, you'll have people around you who will be happy to tell you there's 50 reasons why that clearly couldn't work. And my advice to you is, sure, listen to those people, particularly if they know you well and they understand what you're doing and they understand why. But if they're not in that camp, then probably push them out a little bit. Less important that their views matter. Come back to this thing on the wall that says, this is why I'm doing this, because you're going to need that to keep your energies up as you're heading into this space of starting a law firm. So that was number one, get clear on why you're doing this wonderful thing that you want to do. Number two, the what. What sort of law firm are you going to run? And this is a really, really important question to ponder, I think, because you have, in essence, a blank slate to start with these days. When I started my firm back in 2008, it was the idea of having no office or a virtual office or any of those things just wasn't a thing. At that point in time, you needed an office, a lease, a server on site, people there. It was quite, I guess, traditional. I don't love that word, but it's just how it was. And technology was the primary reason for why it was what it was. You just couldn't work in the way that we work now. But you have such opportunity when you're starting a new law firm to really build it around how you wish it to be. And the question that I ask all of my coaching clients when they're reaching out to me and saying, I need some help, I'm feeling a bit lost, I get them to answer this simple question that's on the slide right now. How do I want to spend my time? Typo on the slide, I just found it. So how do I want to spend my time? And then I drill down and say, all right, how do I want to spend my time? Talk me through your perfect work day. And so for some of you on the call, if you've got the space and you're near a keyboard, answer this question for me, because it's always really interesting. We all like different parts of the work that we do. And some will say to me, my perfect work day involves me head down in some really interesting, complex legal work, and I don't get interrupted, and I just get to pump it through, and I have a delighted client at the end of the day. And others will say to me, my perfect work day has nothing to do with legal work and everything to do with something else. And if you can really think about this question and build your business around your perfect work day, you may not be able to achieve it in week 2 of a new business, but if this is the goal on the agenda, there's a much greater chance that you're going to enjoy your new business and you're not just going to create another version of what you're already in at the moment. And there's a much greater chance that this happiness piece that I know matters to people is going to sit at the heart of what you're doing, which as a result, as Simon Sinek would tell us, we're going to get clear on our why, we're going to be able to lead better, we're going to have an engaged team. All of these things matter. And it all comes back to you really asking the question of yourself, how do I want to spend my time? How do I want to work as a business? How do I see this working in terms of the human being that I am and the things that I enjoy doing? Once you've done your day, I encourage you to do the same for your perfect work week. And this is really important again, across a week, what do you enjoy doing? Because some of us like variety. I love variety. So I am a family lawyer. I still run a very large caseload. And I enjoy doing that. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm in essence the CEO of my organization and not doing any customer facing work. But I need variety. So today's a great example. I'm doing this webinar this morning. I'm in court at lunchtime. I've got another webinar later today. So it's a really mixed bag in terms of how I spend my time. And that's where I get my joy, is the mix of different pieces and things. And that wouldn't be the case for all of us. Once, of course, you've done the perfect work week, a couple of other questions that I think are really helpful for this idea of what sort of law firm is it? And a really important one is, how much money do you need to make? Money can be sometimes such a dirty topic when it comes to life and business, but this is really important. If you're not able to make the income that you or your family need, then you're going to be deeply stressed, and that's not going to be good for you in the long run either. And again, if you're starting from scratch, you may not be able to make that money from week 1, but we need to have a budget. We need to be clear about what are our goals and where are we trying to get to. So how much money do you need? And the framework that I encourage people to start with when it comes to how much money do I need is do a budget for their home first. Because in the short term, anyone that's starting from scratch in a brand new legal practice, I like to suggest that your short-term goal should be to meet whatever the needs are of your household. And once we meet the needs of our household, then we start looking to step that up, step that up, step that up. But we need to not be in a space of financial stress or worrying about money. It's one of the biggest challenges in any business. And so doing a budget, how much do you need? What is your rent or your mortgage? What are your kids' school fees? How much do you need for your groceries? What reserves do you have in your family to help you get this through? And if you don't, that's okay too. But having this certainty around how much do we need is a really important starting point in the sense of, okay, well, in a perfect world, in the next 3 months, I would love to get to a place where this is the amount of money that I can regularly draw from my business to meet our household needs. And then we can build from there. A really, really important one. I'm just going to pause because I have a question. It's a long question. Hi, Michelle. Your perfect workday. Oh, perfect. You're answering my question. Thank you so much. Helping them to understand it doesn't have to be confrontational. Yep. Yeah. There you go. So can you see, Michelle, that if you frame that comment, I don't know whether you can screenshot it yourself and frame it. If you, when you're starting to build out your business, you need to have as a priority the ability to pick up and drop your kids off from school and kindy. So immediately that's in a positive way, thinking about how we're going to frame our workday and the messaging we're going to have with our customers around that. And in terms of the type of work, so you're telling me there that you would like to do, it sounds very similar to what I do. I do a lot of collaborative practice and mediation. So I work with clients that are focused on finding solutions and not necessarily destroying their families. And so our whole marketing plan is built around attracting those sorts of clients. Everything we do comes from a place of how do we attract and assist people who are genuinely trying to solve their problem in a way that is not destructive. And so how we deliver our service, how I've structured the furniture in our office, how our website works, any marketing that we do in the social media space, everything is coming from that mental place of we're trying to attract these people because we know we can work best with them. And so when you get this clarity of this is how I want to spend my time and this is who I want to help, you can build your whole business around it. And all of a sudden you've got a niche practice that's incredibly powerful. So yeah, write that one down, copy, paste, frame, whatever you need to do, Michelle. It's really, really powerful. This is a question that I find is often overlooked because law and feelings, why would we put those two together? That's a really silly thing. No, it's a really important thing. How do you want to feel? You really do need to ask yourself, how do I want to feel? When I rock into work every day, wherever that might be, how do I want to feel? Do I want to feel the same as I feel now? Do I want to feel different? What are the emotions? You know, I love going to work, even in lockdown, as weird as that might be. I wake up in the morning and I never have a sense of, oh God, I've got to go to work. I often have a sense of, oh golly, I've got to appear before that judge. But I don't have a sense of, oh God. And I did 9 years ago when I, first embarked upon that moment of, something's not right here. I really did have that sense of, I don't want to go. And I don't have that anymore. And it's because I've done so much work around all of these things that I'm talking to you about. What's my perfect work day? What's the sort of business I want to run? How do I do that? Who are the people that I need to have on my bus to make all of that work? And I've become super focused about all of those things. And as a result, I would say, very happy in the space that I'm in. And that's something that really matters to me. I do believe that life is short and I want to live it in the happiest way I can. Can't always be, bouncing off the walls, but I have that as a focus and a value set that sits at the heart of everything that I do and therefore everything that the businesses that I run do. I encourage you to ask yourself, what matters to me? How do I want to feel? And it's a bit of a grim question, but I often always come back to, if this was my last day on this earth, would I be proud of my achievements? Would I be proud of how I've spent my time? And if the answer to that by and large is yes, then I know I'm on the right track. And if the answer to that is no, then that's the moment where I go, okay, something's out of kilter here. I've got to, either get my workload down, get my presence back with my family, like what's going on for me that I need to shift something. And it all comes from these feeling questions. And some of these are really hard questions. I'm brushing over them in a 8 a.m. webinar. These are things that require some thought and some time, but I really encourage you to do that. I think it will make the world of difference to the type of organisation that you're going to build and then your ability to really thrive within it. So once you've answered those questions, you're going to be able to answer this question, in light of all of those things, your firm should, and importantly, should not. If we take Michelle's answer, then listening or reading, and therefore listening to myself reading it, Michelle, I would say that you don't want to build yourself a business where you're working, 80 hours a week. And you don't want to build yourself a business where you're constantly dealing with people in high conflict. You should, however, build a business that gives you the flexibility to pick kids up and drop them off. But if you're doing less litigation and more, negotiation, you have control over how those timeframes work. And that's really powerful. You should be attracting people who are focused on amicable resolution. I use the language staying friends, have respect for each other, they value family, all of these things. And so we focus in that space. And you also would need to ensure that you're hiring team members that have a similar value set. So before I move to point number 3, any comments or questions? Grabbing my water bottle because I'm like talking at the rate of knots to try and jam everything into an hour for you all, which is always a challenge for me. And if not, we're going to carry on with step number 3. To do anything in life, we need a plan. And I don't usually have to persuade lawyers on the benefits of plans. Most of us do it every single day for our clients. What's the plan here? How are we going to tackle this case? What are the steps? You need to do exactly the same thing for your law firm. One of my dear friends in law, Demetrio Zima, if there's a gentleman that knows how to run a law firm and build an interesting one at that, he is the king of it. And I came to know Demetrio after he'd started his firm, actually, and he presented at a conference that I was running, and he told the story of how he had literally planned and launched his firm. And this was at a time before COVID, and Demetrio went to Bali and sat in a lovely private villa for, I think it was 3 months. And all he did in that time, aside from, I imagine, swim at the beach and have a lovely time in Bali, was literally plan out how he was going to launch and grow and manage and lead and run the law firm of his dreams for the next 5 years. And it must be the 5 years, I think, past since Demetrio did that. And he runs a firm called Law Squared here in Australia, which I think is one of the most exciting and interesting firms in the commercial law space here in this country. And I know he's just launching over in New Zealand as well. And it all came from, this space and this time to be able to sit and really think about how he was going to do this and then execute the plan. Very, very clever. So most of us can't go to Bali right now and hang out in the private villa. And look, even if we could, many of us just couldn't achieve 3 months off to go and hang out in a private villa and plan out a law firm. So we've got to find our own way of doing this, and we've got to create the space to do it, whatever that looks like for us. So here is a bit of a framework that will help you with this plan. So unsurprisingly, we start with my firm, and it needs a name. When I wrote my books, the gentleman that coached me through my first book, he always has a process, and he coaches a lot of people in book writing, has a process where he makes you do the cover of the book before you've even written the book. And he makes you print it and wrap it around a book, and he makes you turn it into a PDF and put it in front of you. And the whole point with what Andrew's getting all of us to do is to make it real. It's all well and good talking about writing a book, but when you can actually see in front of you a book with a cover that has your name on it, and you perhaps tell other people that you're doing it and show them, it's amazing how much more accountable you become and more excited you become about that book that you're writing. And it's the same with your law firm. It's all well and good saying, I'm going to start a law firm. It's a whole other thing when you call it something. It now has a persona. It becomes a living being. It exists. And I really encourage you to just start talking about this thing like it already exists, even if it sort of doesn't. So what is it going to be called? And I'm not going to spend the next half an hour talking about how you should name a law firm, but there's all sorts of different ways these days. And you don't have to go with Smith & Sons, but you can go with Smith & Sons. There's no right or wrong here. You pick what works for you. I do think when it comes to naming firms, one of the things to ponder is this going to be Clarissa Rayward's law firm for the rest of eternity, or do I see a situation where other people might be leaders in my organisation, or I may want to transition the ownership at a future point in time? And I think to do that, it is easier if you have a title that isn't Clarissa Rayward Family Lawyers. So I, of course, went with Brisbane Family Law Centre, and it gives me more flexibility, I think, in terms of the future planning for my business. But there's lots of different options here. Like any decision, I encourage you to make it and move on. It is possible to change a name. We ideally don't want to have to do that too regularly. There's lots of money associated with that sometimes. But similarly, you don't want to be so hamstrung that you can't come up with a name. So somewhere there's a balance between getting stuck and picking something and moving forward. So we start with my firm, in my case, Brisbane Family Law Centre, and it specialises in what is it that your firm does? And please don't answer the question by telling me conveyancing, because that is the legal term and how we categorize things. But the language you need to start using is, how is it that you help people? What are the problems that you solve for them? And if you can flip that language early on, it will make you a far more successful business, particularly when it comes to your marketing. We lawyers talk in all of this jargon. And I said earlier, I've interviewed 200 and something lawyers on my podcast, and so many of them are commercial lawyers. And I nod and I smile when someone says to me, I'm a commercial lawyer. And I'm a lawyer, and I've spoken to 200 of them, and I'm still trying to understand what this phrase of commercial lawyer actually means, because what I think I've come to learn is it is so broad, that phrase, that it makes it really hard for a person who hasn't directly worked with the person that's telling me they're a commercial lawyer to be able to go, well, who specifically is it that you help, and how specifically can you help them? So if you can get rid of some of that lawyer lingo and talk more from a place of, I help first home buyers buy and sell homes, or I help families with all of the pieces that occur when relationships end. Whatever it might be for you, I help businesses. I help startup businesses. I help established businesses. I help regional and rural farmers. I don't know, like whatever it is, who is it that you help, and what problems do you help them solve? This is language that it is really, really important to get your head around. So I work best with, in our business, we work best with, and the answer I would give to this question is people who can value, or who value, their relationships with others in life more than anything else. The real value set are the people that work best with our organisation. They may or may not have children, but they have real value on relationships, and they see how important it is to try and maintain some respect within their relationships and all of the lessons that come off the back of that. But who do you work best with? Who are the people that you ultimately are going to be able to help? And in doing so, how do you help them? What do you help them do? And again, avoiding that lawyer lingo and talking much more in the micro. I help people too. I help these particular groups of people or businesses or whatever it is, whatever those clients are that you're going to be working best with. What do you help them to do? And then as a part of your planning, what does your law firm look like? And here you really should, this needs to not just be a circle on a page, this needs to be a massive planning board. I'm a visual planner. You can't see it, but under my desk here are all of these big boards with lots of images and lots of words and lots of ideas. I started in design school before I went to law school doing interior design, and you learn in design school and any of the creative arts to think really visually, to just pull visual ideas together, create these collages, just brain dump everything. Oh, I like the color in that, or I like the shape of that, or that person really interests me and there's things about them that I want to think about and get into my business, whatever it is for you. But just brainstorm this piece and have some fun with it. What does your law firm look like? There might be a chair in a magazine that you see and you think, that chair, that absolutely embodies everything about the meeting room that I want to build, whatever. Get it all down. And as a part of this, you may also do one that is, it doesn't look like. That's also a really helpful place to start. What does it not look like? Because all of us have worked in organizations where we go, whatever this is, I don't enjoy this. And so it's helpful to be able to sort of recognize that and go, okay, well, I need to make sure that I'm just not building another version of the same thing, because that's what I think a law firm is. I need to dream. And the best way to do this is to look at businesses outside of law, be influenced by hairdressers. I go to this hair salon down the road here. Every time I go there, I learn something about business. They have customer service absolutely nailed. They have customer experience absolutely nailed. And every time I'm there, there's something for me that I'm like, oh, that is such a clever way of doing that. How do I get that into my law firm? And so the more inspiration you can take from outside of the legal industry, the more interesting your business will be, the more diverse your business will be. And in doing so, you're then building something that stands out in the marketplace. And that's incredibly important when it comes to the busy marketplaces that we all work in. And another question is part of this planning, how much money does this law firm need to make through a week? And you might have a plan for year one, a plan for year two, a plan for year three. How much money? Put a number to that. Really, really important. Oh, as much as it can. It's a whole conversation for another day, the importance of really knowing your numbers and being across your money in your business. I didn't have great systems about this in the early parts of my business, mainly because no one had ever taught me. I'd sort of learned pieces from the people I worked with prior to running my own firm. This is something I spend a lot of time working with lawyers around these days, is great systems in business around numbers and money. And my life has changed since I have just put in place a couple of simple systems that mean that our cash flow is managed, our billing is managed, our money is managed, and I don't have to stress about, have we got enough? Have we done enough? What's going on? We have what I call the magic number system. And so some of you who may have done a course with me in the past, or perhaps have heard me speak about fixed pricing, because I'm a fixed pricing practice, this magic number is a game changer in business, I think. And in simple terms, it's just working out how much to the dollar does it cost for us to run this organisation every single week or month, however, whatever period you want to work it through, including a sensible salary for you, the owner, and superannuation, please, people, particularly women on this call. I see so many people running businesses that go, I'll deal with super later. No. So that needs to be in your magic number as well. What's your salary? What's your super? How are you paying yourself? That needs to be there every single week. And if we can work out very specifically, how much does it cost to run this organisation, from the photocopier, from the insurance we all need to have, from the person at the front desk, from the staples that we need to buy to Officeworks, whatever it is that's going on in your business, how much does it cost? And get that right down to a weekly number, you've got a target. And the minute you've got a target, and a bunch of lawyers, they tend to achieve it. And so my whole business runs on this very simple concept of, we have a magic number. Every week, everyone's chasing that magic number. As long as we hit that magic number, everyone carries on. Life is easy. There are no problems. And so we don't have individual budgets. We don't have, time billing. We just have target, achieved, carry on. And it opens the door for a lot of different thinking, for building products, for finding different ways to create revenue in an organisation. I could talk to that stuff for hours, but my message to you all is, we need some systems around money. Really, really important. Otherwise, we get caught out by the tax office and all of these things, and it's just not good at all for lawyers. From the money conversation, which is sort of this end of the weirdness, to this end of the weirdness, or what I think is probably the most beautiful piece. When you run a business, you get to leave a legacy, and that's powerful. And so I encourage you to ponder, as part of your planning, what is the legacy that you will leave? And using that legacy to build the values for the organisation that you run. This is what we have at the FLC. What we stand for is our value statement. I don't have a big, long office manual that tells people how they need to behave. We have a one-page A4 poster that goes with any new employment contract. So it's actually this simple. This is how you need to work here. You need to be helpful. You need to be kind. You need to be grateful. You need to be respectful. You need to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Really important in family law. Nothing ever goes to plan. Trust yourself. Trust each other. Be the best we can be, and change the world for someone, and ideally have some fun doing it. I'm a big advocate for fun, even in a legal practice. That's the simplicity of my organisation, and yet there's so much more to that, isn't there? There's simple words. It takes a lot to be helpful. It takes a lot to be kind when you're under pressure and stress. It takes effort and energy to find the good in the challenge, and that's gratitude. To be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, that's not easy for all of us. To trust people that you don't already know, that's hard. These things are big concepts, but the simplicity of having it on one page, that's the legacy that we're leaving right down the bottom there. Our goal is to change the world for someone and to have some fun doing it. And each day I'm proud of my team, because that is what they do. On a one-on-one micro level, they are helping people. They're changing that little person's world in that day. And it is always in my mind, that analogy of the pebble going into the pond. If we can make that one person's life a little bit easier, they go out into the world, and it's like the water circles as the pebble falls into the pond, and those rings come out. That's what all of us are doing every single day. If we make it a bit easier for this person, they're going out, hopefully a happier, kinder, warmer human being, and they're making a difference for all sorts of other people as well. And surely that leads to a good society. So thinking about, what is the legacy that I want to build with the business that I'm starting to run? It's really powerful. And it comes back again to that Simon Sinek concept of get clear on your why. There's our why on our what do we stand for right there. And so once you've sorted all of those things out, because they're easy questions to answer, you're now going to need to spend some time thinking about, okay, well, what do I need? I've got all of these great ideas. What on earth am I going to need to do all of this? And so here's a couple of suggestions. Some knowledge. This is really important. You might know your practice area super well, but you may never have had to run a trust account before. So if that's the case, then you're going to immediately write down, right, I'm going to need to learn how to run a trust account. And here in Australia, we have, of course, the practice management programs that we get to do and we must do before we can hold a practicing certificate that lets us run a law firm. I'm not sure what it's like in Canada, but they're the rules here in Australia. Those programs are so powerful. Take them seriously. Don't see them as a ticker box. And if from that program you don't have all of the knowledge that you want to need, then go and seek more. There is so much wonderful learning available in the business space, not only in the legal business space, but in the business space. So pause and think, what do I know? What aren't my strengths? And what do I want to learn? And who has that knowledge and how can I get it? So powerful, really important. You may be thinking, look, I'm a family lawyer at the moment, but my intention is to actually run a practice that has family law and, say, estate planning. But my estate planning knowledge is not as strong as I think it needs to be. So great, there's another knowledge piece. All right, I need a plan around how I'm going to improve my knowledge in that space. And who might I call upon in the short term if I'm doing that work? So you might have some mentors, you might have some colleagues, you might engage some barristers, whatever it is. You might have a coach. This year I engaged a gentleman that's been a mentor of mine for eons, but he is now a retired judge. And I didn't want to just be taking advantage of his energy and time, which he probably would have given me anyway. I said to him, I actually want to engage you paid as a coach. I want to spend 12 months really trying to upskill parts of my legal practice. And I've got a team of lawyers who I also want to be able to really upskill. So we've engaged him as literally a legal coach. And it's the most powerful thing to be able to talk to someone who has such incredible legal knowledge and really test, show him a letter that I've drafted and say, like, tell me, what do you think about this? Is that the right approach? Is this the right way of going? How I've drafted something, my advocacy in court, being able to run that by him. This is the approach. This is what I'm thinking. No, Clarissa, don't do that. Do this. It's just so good. And I really do believe that we never stop learning. And so constantly having input on how you can do what you do better will make you a wonderful lawyer and a wonderful business owner to boot. So number one, knowledge. Number two, people. This is so important in business. You need to think about who are the people I need on my bus. And that might be team members. It'll certainly be customers and clients. And it may also be partners. And partners in this context will be complementary businesses where you usually have the same ideal client, but no competitive overlap in terms of how you can help those clients. So a common one that pops up often in our world is lawyer and accountant. Both can help business or business owner in different ways, but we've got a common client. And so when you're starting a business, it can be incredibly powerful to have 4 or 5 or 6 really strong referral relationships that can drive the sorts of work that you need to your business. But you are going to have to really think about who are the people that I'm going to need? Who do I need now? Who do I want in the future? I'm often asked who's the first person I should hire when I'm starting a law firm. And my answer to that question is you should hire a bookkeeper. This is that money question again. And, I see so many great lawyers, they start great businesses, they start doing heaps of legal work, and then they get to a point where they just don't have any time to issue an invoice. And then 6 months down the track, they're wondering why they can't pay for anything. And it's not because they haven't done a great job, and it's not because people don't want to pay them. It's because no one's in their office issuing the invoice to get paid. And so having from the outset structures around money and a person who that is their skill set, in my experience, is one of the most valuable things that you can put some money into early in your business. What are the technology pieces that you're going to need? There are so many wonderful technology tools available these days, which is just dangerous because it becomes like this shiny ball moment of, oh, wow, I must have that and that and that and that. And the question is, do you really need all of those things? When it comes to technology, I would encourage you to try and have a long-term vision. There are lots of things that you can do cheaply and freely in the short term, and that's fine. But there are some things that I do think it's worth spending the money now, thinking about the vision for my organization. Do I have a vision in 5 years' time of having a team of 20? If the answer to that is yes, then really give some thought before you invest in a practice management system that likes to charge per bum on seat $200 a month. It might sound really effective right now, but once there's 20 of those people that you need to pay for that, that's a lot of money. So you really want to think about, how am I going to invest in technology now for the future of my business? And of course, there are budgetary thought processes. So if that's a case of, well, look, I've just got to get this piece up and running, then what you need to think about is, well, am I investing in a tool that is easy to move from, or easy to get my data out of and transfer to something later on? This is a really, really interesting space to be in. In the course that I do run around starting a law firm, a colleague of mine, Fiona McClay is her name. She is just a gem of a woman. She is a lawyer, a commercial lawyer, and she has really, I guess, left the private practice of law to become a technology consultant in law, because she just loves it. She knows this stuff inside out. And it's been so helpful, I've found, to have someone that you can ring and say, this is the challenge. What do you recommend in terms of technology pieces? And not have someone that's aligned to a technology brand answering that question. Have someone who is a practicing lawyer that can say, look, my experience, when we had that challenge, this worked really well. I've seen this new product as well. This one could work really well. Let's do some research and see what might work for you. So there are lots of people now that offer services in helping us all to make the right decision. And I really encourage you to give some thought to that. Products and services. You know, what sort of products, what sort of services is your law firm going to offer? I run a law business more so than a law firm. And the distinction in my mind is we offer more products than we do services. Products are things that built once, sold many times. And I have this wonderful app on my phone. It's called Shopify, and it makes this wonderful sound. It's like a cash register. So if someone buys something, it goes cha-ching. And it's just the most beautiful thing. I know that sounds really strange now that I say that out loud. But in any event, when you're hanging out with your kids on a Sunday, to have this sort of sound go cha-ching as someone buys something and realize I'm here doing what I love doing, and I'm still able to make money, which enables me to pay all of the great people that work for me. It's just such a wonderful mindset to be in. So this is products. This is thinking about, how do I build things that are helpful to people that don't involve me sitting there doing things one-on-one. And there's a whole world of that available to all of us now. But of course, we are a service industry, and you can, of course, continue to operate in a one-to-one model, and that's entirely okay. We do both in the businesses that I run, and there's real power that comes from that income diversity. Number 5, brand and marketing. This is a topic for like 10 years. Really important to think about what sort of brand I'm going to have, and as a result of that, how am I going to market it? Brand and branding are two different things. Branding is the pretty letterhead and the nice logo and the great colors and the stuff that we all enjoy doing. Brand is literally the reputation, and it's every single thing that you do. It's how you show up absolutely everywhere is your brand as a business. And so something that I really encourage you to pause and think about, what is the brand of this business that I'm building? Space, where are you going to put it? What's it going to look like? Where's it going to be? Is it going to be from your dining room at home, which is perfectly fine? Am I going to take a co-working space? Do I want to have an actual, physical, tangible space? Is it an office that exists just here in Brisbane? Is it an office that exists all around the world? What sort of space do I need? Really think about this. And there's such beautiful opportunity when you think about, where am I going to position this organization? It opens so many doors. So spend some time with that one. How much money do I need to start? Some, absolutely not well thought out research that I did, namely asked some people on social media last year, how much did it cost you to start your law firm? And the overarching theme was about $20,000 seems to be a common number that popped up for people starting a almost at-home startup law firm, from insurance to some basic computers, practice management, just the actual things that I had to pay for. Of course, it could be your budget could be as big as you have, really, but you can do this really cost effectively. So sit down, get out a pen, get out a calculator, or if you fancy an Excel spreadsheet, and really give some thought to the budget. And most importantly, give some thought to you. What is it going to take for you to show up every single day as the best version of you? Because you will be the leader of this organization, whether you like it or not. It will be a direct reflection of the type of human that you are, whether you like it or not. If you're showing up the best version of you, your business will be the best version of what it can be. And the flip side of that coin is obvious. And so it's, again, a lecture for later today. Actually, I'm delivering a presentation on the 5 things that we all need to be happy lawyers. But right at the top of that are things like sleep and health and relationships and well-being. If you don't have all those things in sync, then you're not going to be the best version of you, and you're not going to be able to build the best business that you could. I'm talking faster because I've got 1 minute left on my clock. So remember, there were 4 steps, and then I just did 8 steps within step 3. This is step number 4. It's a really complicated one. As Nike would say, just do it. You could plan in Bali for the months that you have. You could spend years pondering this idea, but there's lots of people that tell me they're going to do things, and there's a much smaller group of people who just get on and do it. And you just need to get on and do it. And when you start questioning yourself and saying, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? You should hear my annoying voice in your head saying, what is the worst that can happen? And usually the answer to that question, as long as we're not too negative and pessimistic, is I lose some money, I learn a few things, and I go do something else. And that's a really important thing to keep in context. You know, if you don't take a chance sometimes and just have a go at this, you'll never know. And heavens, it might actually work out perfectly, or heavens, it may be the thing that makes you go, no, it turns out that wasn't what I needed to do, aka Clarissa's Cafe. But for that cafe, I wouldn't have the law firm that I have now and the amazing people in it. So I really encourage you to give some thought to what's the worst that could happen. And usually the answer for us as lawyers, assuming we're not doing things entirely wrong, is we lose some money, we learn some things, and it'll take us on the next path. And isn't life a journey? As much as I hate that saying, I love that saying. It really is. I couldn't actually tell you what I'll be doing in 2 years' time. I couldn't have predicted that we'd be living in this strange pandemic world that we all live in right now. But isn't that half the fun? And it comes back to that quote I showed you right at the beginning from Jay Bayer. All of the great things happen in that space between the expected and the predicted. So be a great lawyer. That's really important. If you're going to run a law firm, you actually need to know your law. I really can't say that enough. You need to be great at what you're doing. Show up every day and be the best version of yourself. This is really, really, really important, particularly from a leadership perspective. And remember why you're doing what you're doing, because business is full of ups and downs, and it's that why, which is your purpose, that will keep you showing up every single day. 4 steps. We did the why, the what, the plan, and as Nike would tell us, we're just going to do it and we're going to work the rest out as we go. We're not silly people. Please remember that. You know, we forget when you hang out with a whole bunch of lawyers just how helpful and smart and thoughtful lawyers really are. That is our strength. You can do this. So it's just having the courage is often the biggest barrier that I see in lawyers. As I said, I do run a course that takes the content that we've spoken about today and really drills into it. So really helps you build the right sort of brand, looks at products, works out numbers and money, websites, all of the pieces that I think you need to get this off the ground. It's not a practice management course in the way that the College of Law or the various law societies offer. And those courses are entirely appropriate and you must do them. And there's lots of useful learnings that come from them. I guess what I'm focusing on is the practical stuff. So once you're actually running this, how do I actually do it? And so much more of that modern business focus in this program. And that is it. We made it only 2 minutes over. That's pretty good for Clarissa, actually. Guys, I hope that was helpful. Please throw me any questions or comments before we finish off. And otherwise, I really would love you to just go and give those ideas a whirl and see what comes. There's so many wonderful things that come from running a law firm, and lots of hard things as well, particularly in the midst of a COVID crisis. Look at that sun. It's going to drive me crazy today. Go and have some fun. Lovely to have you all join me this morning. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you soon.